During a recent press conference, Republican Senator Rick Scott repeated what I guess you would call a misleading statement, but it was a lie. He knows that he's being dishonest here. It was a lie. And it's something he said recently-ish, maybe a month or two ago, on CNN about the Democrats being the real ones who are trying to cut Medicare. It's actually the Democrats coming for and cutting Medicare. And he cites a particular figure. And so we'll walk through why this is just stunningly dishonest in a second here. But here's the moment that occurred yesterday, today or yesterday. And then spliced in the same clip is the CNN flashback where he said this back then. Take a look.
Don't you get fired?
And you know who cut Medicare is the Democrats. They did it in September in their spending bill. They cut $280 billion out of Medicare. So they want to say Republicans want to cut Medicare. None of us support cutting Medicare benefits, but they actually did it.
Again,
Absolutely not. And you know the Democrats just cut $280 billion. All Democrats in the Senate and House voted to cut $280 billion out of Medicare just 2 months ago.
Just want to correct the record. The Democrats' plan, which is now law, it didn't cut didn't cut Medicare benefits. It allowed for negotiation for prescription drug prices, which would ultimately bring down the price and the cost for Medicare consumers. But I want to ask the next question.
Okay. I'm glad we don't have to watch more of that interview because I remember how aggravating it was to watch that when we originally covered it. So this is the perfect example. Part of why I pulled this for the show today is this is the perfect example of taking a kernel of truth and then just absolutely bending, now I'm mixing metaphors, but going far enough with your dishonest portrayal of the fact that it's a lie. You cannot say they cut as in the benefits of Medicare. That's what's being assumed when you say that. And it's so wild to watch them. I don't get why politicians can just openly do that. So let me explain where this comes from, and then we'll discuss further. The Inflation Reduction Act of 2022, signed into law by President Biden on August 16th, 2022, includes several provisions to lower prescription drug costs for people with Medicare and reduce drug spending by the federal government. This legislation has taken shape amid strong bipartisan public support for the government to address high and rising drug prices. CBO estimates that the drug pricing provisions in the law will reduce the federal deficit by $237 billion over 10 years. So that over $200 billion figure that he cited comes from the fact that the legislation that the Biden administration pushed for and eventually signed into law that allowed Medicare to negotiate drug prices, meaning they can negotiate down the drug price to save the government money and save the individuals on Medicare money. Rick Scott is saying that's cutting Medicare. So by saving money, because we're not allowing the drug companies to price gouge us as much, but we're still giving the same amount of benefits to the Medicare recipient as we were before, that to him is cutting Medicare. So the way for the Democrats to have not cut Medicare would have been, hey, let's for no reason just chuck more money at the drug companies and not save the money we could get through negotiations. This is not cutting benefits, it's just saving money, getting the same benefits. That is a stunning level of dishonesty, and it drives me crazy to see. One more moment from this press conference, this time Rand Paul.
If we were to have a $100 billion cut, which would still have us spending way more than we spent before COVID, a $100 billion cut in free spending, we would balance our budget in just 4 years. This is amazing. We have an opportunity here. It could be done, but it would take compromise between both parties. Republicans would have to give up the sacred cow that says we will never touch a dollar in military, and the Democrats would have to give up the sacred cow that they will never touch a dollar in welfare. Everything would have to be looked across the board. No one has a sacred area that would be immune, and when you make the cuts across the board, they aren't as big as you'd actually think they would be.
Okay, so he's talking about cuts, saying that the Republicans need to be willing to cut military spending, the Democrats need to be willing to cut welfare spending, and I'm sure there's some examples you can give me of within our welfare programs, tons of examples, inefficiencies, money going to places that it shouldn't, sure. But generally, this concept of, wait, no, we need to cut stuff. We need to cut welfare. We're giving too much to people. We need to do more tax cuts. No, for the wealthy. That is so misleading, because all of the actions that Rand Paul would want to take, or Trump was pushing for the other day in an attempt to say we could save Medicare and Social Security by cutting woke stuff out of the military, all of that is to stand in place of the best solution, which would just be, hey, his $100 billion figure, we're expected to get over $200 billion in additional revenue through Biden's funding of the IRS to hire more individuals to go after the wealthiest tax cheats. Those at the very top who don't pay the taxes that they should, have complex systems for getting out of paying their taxes. And the IRS, now that it has more resources, or that it will have more resources, will be able to go after those individuals. And while the funding was something like $80 billion, the revenue back from that, because we'd be getting all that additional tax revenue that we're supposed to be getting, would be over $200 billion over 10 years. And so programs, investments like that, great way to protect programs that help the working American while still cutting down on the deficit, if that's your priority. But so many people within the Republican Party, no, don't go after the wealthiest. That's horrible. I like that billionaires can pay an effective tax rate of single digits, 1-2% in effective taxes, federal income taxes, because of all the different ways they can get out of paying taxes. They love that fact. So instead they say, it might be time to cut those naughty entitlements. We got to get rid of some of those entitlement benefits, right? That's what they decide to go after instead. And it is really aggravating all around to see. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to be a part of what makes this show possible, plus get access to the full video version of the show hours before any of the clips are uploaded to YouTube, plus get the extra bonus show every single Saturday, you can do so by going to patreon.com/LukeBeasley. That's patreon.com/LukeBeasley, and there's a link in the description.